Welcome to Permission to Heal. I am Marcy Brockman, and I am so glad you're here. In this podcast, we engage in meaningful, deeply human conversations using our voices to inspire connection, compassion, understanding, empathy, and wholehearted wellness. I want you to find the courage to transform yourself no matter what others tell you. Only you can give yourself permission to trust yourself, permission to take care of yourself, permission to follow your heart and desires, and build a life of love, home, and belonging. Through sharing our stories, we will help each other to heal and create the healthy, meaningful lives we richly deserve. We only need our own permission to begin. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Permission to Heal. I am Marcy Brockman, and I am thrilled that you're here. I normally record episodes earlier in the day, and this special episode with Dr. Belle, Dr. Belle Bugatti, is we filmed it, recorded it at night. Very big time zone difference, and it got very late, and we both got very tired, so the conversation went in all different directions. Dr. Belle Bugatti is a nationally certified counselor and an ICE-EFT certified emotionally focused couples supervisor and therapist, using emotionally focused therapy with specializations in helping couples and individuals mend broken relationships and overcome issues such as chronic stress, anxiety, low self-esteem, or challenges with their personal life. Dr. Belle's expertise is competing attachment in romantic relationships and how this impacts relationship satisfaction and security. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology with a minor in marriage and family therapy from UNLV, a master's of science degree in clinical mental health counseling at Long Island University City Post in Greenville, New York, and extensive training in couples therapy and substance abuse counseling. She's also a certified sex therapist. And so tonight we talked about sex, and we talked about how our bodies and our hormones and our libidos change as we age, and we talked about the importance and the value of communication in any healthy relationship, but also when it comes to intimacy and a happy, healthy sex life that is satisfying for everybody involved in the relationship. It comes down to communication and openness, and we talked about that, and we talked about quite a few things. We talked about polyamory versus monogamy. We talked about how couples can learn how to experiment with each other and overcome all sorts of blocks in communication, or a sexless marriage, or differing expectations or libidos, or changes in body as we age. And we talked about pornography, and it was a very interesting, very informative, to very interesting conversation. So I hope that you will join us and feel inspired to work on your own relationship, to go talk to your partner about how you want things to be and what you're looking for and what you want. And I hope that you're inspired to work on your own relationships and improve them so that you are as happy as you possibly can be, because you deserve it. And so now here is the episode. Thank you for listening. All right, welcome, Dr. Belle. I'm so thrilled that you're here this evening. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you again for having me back. How are you?
I'm good. I'm tired. It's the end of the school year, but I'm excited about summer.
Yes,
I'm excited to get my life back, get things a little bit more organized and
no kidding. And it feels
rest and
like it's sort of a different year this year because not only it's like the end of the school year, beginning of summer, but it feels like it's the end of the lockdown
yeah,
phase as everything's starting to open up. But a lot of things are open up, but a lot of things aren't open up. And where can you go? Where can you not go? What are the rules? Can we
right.
have fun? Can we not have fun? Are we afraid? We not afraid? It's like, what do we feel?
Exactly. Yeah, I have a mask, a bunch of masks in my car still because you never know if you're going to walk into a store and they're going to ask you to wear one. I
Exactly.
until the
We have I call them the car masks because we have a couple different vehicles. So I put one in every single car. So then if we forget and we go to a place that requires them, oh, we have one in the car.
exactly. Exactly. But it feels like a rebirth in a
Yes,
way. You
yes.
know, suddenly we're not as paranoid as we were. We're seeing people we haven't seen in a long time, taking trips, going out. Even going to a restaurant has been weird.
Yes. Yes. It is feel weird. It's like seeing people you haven't seen in a while, but it feels like you just saw them. But it's like, wait a second, the last time I actually saw you was like a year and a
18
half
months
ago.
ago, right.
That's so weird.
Very, very strange.
Yep.
We're taking a big family trip in July. My dad, my stepmom, both my sisters and their spouses and kids, and all of us are going to an all inclusive in Jamaica for a week in July. And you know, we have to get COVID tests before we go, and everybody had to
Mhm.
get vaccinated, and there are all
Do
these
they
regulations.
do they require vaccinations or just like can you get in with just the COVID tests?
Good question. I think you can just get a COVID test.
Yeah, because
I'm
there are
not
some
sure.
age groups that can't get
Yes,
vaccinated.
yes, my nephews are too young to get
Yeah.
the, you know, they're still elementary school age. They can't get
Yeah.
COVID
Yeah.
vaccines, but everybody
And
else has
and there's
gotten
some
them.
folks who have like particular health issues that kind of preclude them from getting the COVID vaccinations. And it's
Right.
like what you're not allowed to travel ever again, ever go on vacation. Like that doesn't seem
Right.
very fair.
Right. I think we just have to get COVID tests before we go, and I'm a little nervous, but I'm trying to be chill, you know?
Yeah.
And
I have traveled quite a bit, and we're actually getting ready to go to Mexico in July. And
nice.
I find that so many places just really do a wonderful job of trying to make it safe, trying to do all that they can. And it just felt like sliding back into normal, and it felt so good and so refreshing. And it was like, oh, I miss people. So
I'm excited to see a different environment for a
yes,
change.
yes.
You know, I love being home, but I'm getting kind of sick of all these walls being the same. And the
These
only
four?
place that I've really gone is school and home and an
Yeah,
occasional store. That's kind
yeah,
of it. So it'll be
yeah.
good. It'll be
Oh,
good. So, since you've been here last, um, well, no, since you are the first guest to be back again, I should actually say,
well,
um,
thank you. I feel so honored.
yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that you're here. It's fabulous. I normally begin the interviews with the 6 quick questions, but you've already answered them,
Yeah.
so I made new ones just for you.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
So let's start with
Well,
those.
first, should
Yeah.
we, before we answer the question, should we not keep everyone in suspense and tell them what we're talking about today?
Oh, yes, of course, absolutely, absolutely.
We're going to talk about
Ooh, sex,
ooh,
excellent.
sex. Yep.
That should get everyone's interest.
I know, right? Yes, we're talking about sex.
I've
So
been looking
hang
forward
tight.
to this for weeks.
Me too. And I have one episode on my own podcast talking about women in sex in particular and why talking about sex is so hard to talk about. So hopefully we'll get to talk about some of that today because that is a
Definitely.
huge barrier, which we'll get into. But let's talk about these questions first.
Okay. So the first is, what is your favorite dessert?
My favorite dessert. I'd have to say hands down strawberry shortcake.
Cool. I
I
like
am a
that.
sucker for it. I really like when you get it on at the store, you can get the little cups, the little
Uh-huh.
shortcake cups. Those are amazing. But my even more favorite is when you go to the restaurants and they make the shortcake where it's almost like a biscuit, kind of like a biscuit
Really?
cake. Oh my gosh, it's so good with strawberries and a little bit of like whipping cream. Oh my goodness, it's so good.
Heaven. I've
Yeah.
never seen it like that with the biscuit. That's
Oh yeah.
very interesting. For me, it's
That's
carrot cake, hands down, with cream
ooh,
cheese
I love
frosting. I just love.
carrot cake.
It's like an
I love
orgasm on a spoon. I just
right.
love it.
I do. And you know, Whole Foods sells carrot cake in
Yes,
the bakery section.
definitely. It's
Yes.
delicious.
And
Delicious.
did you know, and I do believe they're franchised in other states, it's a store called Nothing Bundt Cakes. And they make a bundt cake that's a carrot cake, and it is
Ooh.
so good.
Wow. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, Nothing Bundt Cakes. Yep.
I'm going to write that down. Nothing bundt cakes. Cool.
And if you're
Okay.
listening to this and you're getting really hungry, go down to your store and get some dessert
Exactly.
and bring it back
Exactly.
and listen to us talk about sex.
Yes. Yes. Number two, what TV or videos are you streaming or binge watching now?
Hmm. Let's see. Gosh, I think I'm kind of re-binge watching. So I do continue to re-binge watch stuff. You know, I really like the Divergent series for movies. Just super
Okay.
inspirational. I kind of dig the Shiro thing. Working on your greatest weakness and harnessing it to be your biggest strength. Kind of the story of the overcomers and I something about the post-apocalyptic world that seems very intriguing, like kind of wiping the slate clean and starting over sounds like that would be kind of fun, but I don't want to go through all that death and
No.
destruction first. But yeah, I love the Divergent series for movies. I actually got my fiance to watch The Notebook with me last night, and
Oh, good. Did he like
so
it?
amazing. Oh yes, he actually cried.
Wow.
He just won Man of the Year award. So yes, major points. But I
That's a
also really
tearjerker.
like yes. And I think TV shows, you know, good old Downton Abbey.
Oh, I love that.
Love Downton Abbey. And there's a second movie coming out, so I'm trying to catch him up on it. I want to look at, is it Bridgerton? That,
Bridgerton. Oh, that
yeah,
was fabulous.
I've heard a
Talk
lot of that.
about sex. Oh, my God.
I
Yes.
definitely want to start watching that. So
It
that'll
was
be
wonderful. I read the novel that was based off of. I think it's
mhm.
called The Duke and I, and it was very tame by comparison. And
Wow.
it didn't have all of the
Mhm.
subplots and side stories that the miniseries had.
Mhm.
And as an English teacher, I very rarely say that I liked the TV show or the movie better than the book, but in this case, I
Mhm.
did.
Nice. Definitely that's next on my list. So,
So good, so
what are you
good, definitely.
watching?
For me, I always have Gilmore Girls on repeat.
I love Gilmore Girls. I
Love
love the way
it.
they talk. I wish that all of us could walk around speaking the way they speak in Gilmore
Exactly.
Girls.
Exactly.
I've tried it and people are like, huh? Or they just think you're kind of an ass because you're so sarcastic because they're super sarcastic,
So
but it's
yeah,
like
absolutely.
witty sarcasm and cute
And everything
sarcasm.
is like layered with allusions to other things
Yes.
that even the actors didn't know what most of them meant, which is,
Yeah.
I think Lauren Graham probably did because she's so very well read, but a lot of them had to look them up before they even knew.
Yeah.
Scott Patterson, who played Luke Danes, has his own podcast now.
He does?
He does. It's called I'm All In. And he never watched the series.
Really?
He'd read his lines and go home. And
What is his podcast about?
what he's doing is going back and watching each of the episodes. So each episode of the podcast correlates with an episode of the series. And
Wow.
he's having um, uh, other cast members like Yannick Truesdale, who played Michelle Girard. He had him on, and um,
I love Michelle. His
he had
character.
Sally Struthers on, and
Yeah. man.
and some of like he had the dialogue coach and a costume lady, like he's having people who were involved with the show on to analyze and pick apart
Mm-hmm.
each episode. And
Mm-hmm.
so he had the actor who played Max Medina on and
Mm-hmm.
talking about the early episodes where Lorelai and Max are flirting,
Yeah.
and Luke and Scott Patterson was sort of outraged at how forward Max was and realized that he couldn't separate
Mm-hmm.
himself as Scott Patterson watching it versus the part of him that is Luke and jealous of Lorelai and Max. So the
Yeah.
whole dynamic is very interesting, and
That's
I'm
awesome.
so enjoying it.
Oh man, I definitely want to look that up now that you're telling me. And you know what's funny? Luke, of course, is one of everybody's favorites, and I adore Luke. I love everybody, but I have to say my favorite, funniest character was Michelle. Like, man, his
Yes,
lines were epic.
yes. People are particularly stupid today. I don't want to talk to any of them.
And with his funny French little accent, it
Yeah,
was just so hilarious. Especially when he
so
comes back
great.
from LA and he's like, everybody is beautiful in
Exactly. And they're
LA.
all wearing eyewear.
Yes.
That's
Not
awesome.
glasses. It is chic to say eyewear. Of course, I do a French accent, completely terrible. So,
Sounded a little more Italian, I think. So Gilmore Girls is always on in my house. And I love. We've been rewatching old, not I'm going to say old, but like 20-year-old shows like Medium and then
mm-hmm.
House, which I love.
Oh, yeah.
Again, sarcastic comments,
Good classic. Grey's
and
Anatomy is always a favorite.
yeah, Grey's Anatomy. But I stopped watching Grey's Anatomy when
Dr. McDreamy died.
McDreamy left.
Boy, sorry guys. Yeah, I
Not
watched a
on
little
purpose.
bit.
My life got busy. It just sort of coincided, and
Yeah, I think we were all attached to him and to their relationship, and then it just kind of fizzled out when he was gone. And I tried to watch a little bit after that, and yeah, I think one season, and then same thing, kind of fizzled out.
yeah, yeah. All right, let's get to number three. What's on your nightstand?
My nightstand has a glass of water, a picture of me and my fiance, a purse, my Bible. I'm trying to think if there's anything interesting. Probably like a pen. Um, I don't know that I have anything super interesting on my nightstand. I believe it or not, don't have a lamp on my nightstand because I had my fiance hang up wall sconces, like the
Nice.
lamps that are wall sconces, because I find that lamps end up taking up so much room, and when
Yeah,
you like open and close your drawers, it can make the lamp rattle or want to fall off. And my cat often jumps on my nightstand, so I can't have a lot on my nightstand because he
sure.
knocks it off, which is so irritating. And I have these nightstands that have USB ports in the back.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, so I try. I don't like clutter.
Yeah,
So I try, even though I think there are certain areas of my house that will always have some degree of clutter, certain areas where it's okay, but I try not to have clutter on my nightstand.
makes sense.
So yeah. What's on your nightstand?
A very tall pile of books.
Nice.
Very tall pile of books that the cats are always knocking over.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the charger for my Apple Watch.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Pieces of my nebulizer that I haven't had to use in a while.
Nice.
Um, I think that's probably it. A little bit of dust at this point. I don't think I've
Yep. Mm-hmm.
cleaned so well lately. But that's kind of it. Charger for my cell phone. It's a
Mm-hmm.
big pile of books, mostly.
Books and cords.
Yeah, it's not particularly attractive, and we don't have desk nightstand lamps either. We've got
Mm-hmm.
tall
Yeah.
floor lamp things that crane over and are adjustable, and they
And you're
have
able
these.
to like reach up and turn it
Well,
off
with
from
they have these little remote controls.
the
So I
remote.
just keep it on the headboard behind my head, and then I never have to even pick my head up to turn the light off
That's
and on.
smart. That's kind of
And
why
it
I
dims, and you can change
yeah.
the color temperature of the light. It's pretty
Okay.
cool.
I gotta get me one of those. Yeah, I got the wall sconces because I didn't want to have to get up and turn off the light. And
Right.
so I was like, I can just reach over and and turn it off, but without having it take up all this clutter on my nightstand.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, finish this sentence. Sexuality is.
Sexuality is, oh man, that's complex. Sexuality is complicated.
There you
It's a
go.
little, it's complicated.
There you go. What is the most unusual place?
That
Oh
I've ever
no.
had sex.
No,
Oh,
no,
we're
no,
talking,
no, no, no.
we're talking
I messed up the question.
sexuality.
Messed up the question, and it's supposed to be the six quick, and I only have five because I was going to ask what is the most typical thing that happens in your life that brings you joy,
Oh, no.
but
See,
I
I
rewrote
thought
it.
you asked me a question about sexuality, so I assumed the next question was going to be about sex because our topic is about sex.
Yeah,
I promise I don't have a dirty mind. um, the thing that I do in my life that brings me joy.
yeah,
Um,
like a
um,
snapshot of a moment in your life.
mm, really like, and I can just know as soon as I say this, people are gonna moan and roll their eyes like, oh, my fiance really like he is amazing. And we've known each other for a very, very long time. We were best friends. We secretly fell in love with each other when we only had a platonic relationship. So it says that we fell in love with the right things, but we were too chicken to tell each other and risk losing the friendship. So we
Uh huh.
never told each other. And then our paths kind of went away from each other and took separate roads. And I ended up getting married to someone else, and he got engaged, and neither of those worked out. And then our paths came back together at the right time, and we took the risk, and now we're like inseparable. And he is amazing, and just having actually for the first time having a real legitimate friendship underneath. And I
Yeah,
mean, he's my
that's
best friend.
huge.
It's our relationship is so safe and liberating and freeing, and I'm experiencing myself in new ways and experiencing relationship in new ways, which is crazy because I'm a relationship therapist. So I'm like,
Right.
hey, this is awesome. I'm getting the thing that I've helped everyone else get. And I
That's
always thought,
wonderful.
yeah, it's like I thought I had some version of it, but I realized I didn't quite have it like I have it now. And it's like, wow, I never knew it could be so good, like actually that I could get it. So it's amazing.
I'm so happy
And
for you. That's
yeah,
fabulous.
yeah. So we do all kinds of silly things. We have this kind of running joke as to like what kind of silly adventure I can talk him into. I invariably he lets me talk him into doing silly things. We always end up having a good laugh. But
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome. Well, you were sort of correct. The last question was what is the most unusual place that someone has told you that they have had sex?
Um, the most unusual place that somebody has told me that they have had sex. Well, given that I live in Las Vegas,
Oh gosh. That could
I
be anywhere.
yes. And when I was in my bachelor's degree, I worked at a casino as a cocktail server. And
Oh, so you've heard
so,
everything.
yeah, and then walked in on things, and nothing shocks me.
No.
So, I guess maybe that people go to, there's like sex clubs out here for people, like regular people, to go and swap or try things. And so that's, I guess, probably the most unusual
Mm.
because
There are
not
places
every.
like that in Manhattan, so yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, it was never, I grew up a good little church girl and was, so super protected and kept away from a lot of, so I didn't know a lot of that stuff existed. So
Sure.
it was very eye-opening and intriguing, and, piques curiosity. But I guess for like the everyday person who probably doesn't go to those places to hear about, meet somebody who's actually gone is pretty interesting. So
That's cool.
yeah.
I think it's interesting to be able to be so free with yourself to
Mhm.
experiment and just throw caution to the wind to a degree. I mean, I know places like that have rules that you have to follow or they throw you out, but
Yeah,
um,
yeah. And I kind of think of, the risk that people take in being free kind of depends because sometimes people are taking these risks and they give the illusion that they're free, but they're actually not free. And their riskiness is out of avoidance of stuff going on the inside. So actually doing those things out of true security and safety, and just in the sense of trying to explore an adventure is one thing. The other sense of I'm just reckless and risky because I'm reckless and not really dealing with my stuff. It can take on a form of like an addiction, just like anything else. So,
Sure.
yeah.
It's not so sexy after all.
Nope.
Okay, so for those of our listeners who don't really know what a sex therapist is, or what do you do? How do
So,
you walk clients through things?
yeah. So, um, a sex therapist, first, let me first and foremost say what a sex therapist does not.
Mm-hmm.
And a sex therapist does not have sex with their clients.
No.
No, no, no. What Helen Hunt portrayed in her movies, where she played a quote unquote sex therapist, really, in a way, does a disservice to actual sex therapists, because more of what she did was a clinical sexual surrogate, where she was actually having sex with people in a very clinical way. But her, it was almost like sexual rehabilitation that she was doing. Um, and we don't have sex with our clients, absolutely not. And I mean, when we do sex therapy, basically couples come in that have issues around their sex life. And honestly, I've never actually had much sex therapy that had to do with the actual mechanics of sex. And pretty much all the sex therapy I've done has actually been relationship therapy. We
Okay.
know that when couples feel safe and secure together and they feel free, they're able to navigate and adventure on their own and find their own workarounds. They don't really need a therapist to do that. So, the closest thing that I've worked with the actual mechanics of sex was a couple that I had been counseling their relationship, and they'd done amazing work, and one of them had sexual trauma. So obviously that made it really hard for them to have a satisfying sex life, because when she would start to get aroused or engage in sexual activity, it would trigger her trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and she would feel like she couldn't let go and have an orgasm because it felt like she was going to be in danger or that she was betraying herself in some way.
Right.
And so it was really, really hard. So we did some like grounding techniques where she would let herself be aroused, and her husband was totally safe and they had an amazing relationship. So we kind of used him as an access of safety, where
Mm-hmm.
when they would start to be intimate or sexual, that she would keep eye contact with him so that her brain could start recording that this experience is happening with somebody who's safe, not with my perpetrator. Um, and so that was really, really profound and amazing. And because she had a lot of atrophy of the muscles in the vagina, which often happens, there's some conditions around that are trauma responses. But they found this on their own. They actually went to an adult store, and again, this happened once we were able to really rebuild that connection and restore that emotional safety in their relationship. And they went to an adult store to try to experiment, and they found some type of, I don't know, a device like a dildo, but it was like something that you could change the size, like a blow up thing, and
Uh-huh.
used it kind of as a way to rehabilitate the muscles on the inside. So she could start smaller until her muscles, starting again to kind of have this pairing experience of the act of sex, while her muscles, like helping her brain and her emotions work with her muscles to
Right.
re-encode that experience, is safe, so that she could stop. It's like kind of systematically stop encoding it as a dangerous experience, and she could start to release the tension in the muscles and open up a little bit more and a little bit more till they could get to a point where what they were using would replicate the same as her husband's size, and then they
Right.
could, so then it was able to be a safe experience that they were doing together. And I mean, it was really incredible work.
Wow.
But they, at no point did they ever, nobody gets undressed in my office,
No.
nothing like that. And There's some weird thing, a new disorder that's been invented for people. It's almost like a form of exhibitionism where when people find out you're a sex therapist, they call you and say some pretty unbelievable things as a way to try to get a response out of you, like, oh, I'm struggling with sex with my partner, can I come in there and show you the size of my my penis, and you're gonna and I'm like, no, that's not
No.
gonna happen. No. So
Wow. People are
the things you
brazen.
deal with as a therapist, right?
Wow. Wow. Okay, so it's mostly not biological necessarily. It's
Because
more
the body, what happens physically is a response to your emotional and mental system. So you've got
sure.
to work with those. And again, when there's safety and emotional freedom, couples don't feel shame or inhibition to find their own workaround. So they're more likely to go see the gynecologist or
Mhm.
seek a doctor that can rule out any kind of medical problems. They're more, just like my couple, they went to the adult store on their own and found this device, and it really was like a form of rehabilitation therapy
Sure.
in the sexual arena, but it was something they did together. They found their own ways of solving their own problem, and that's ultimately what you want. And when couples feel that safety, that's what they're going to do. And you don't need to tell them you know about how the mechanics of sex work, unless again really you're working with a couple that has a lot of emotional messages around sex, a lot of stigmas,
Mhm.
brought up in a home where there was a lot of shame taught around sex. And so, of course, that comes into the bedroom. It's hard to talk about. When you can't talk about it, you can't do anything about it. So, but again, that's not actually to do with the physical mechanics of sex, and it's
Right.
more of like the emotional system around sex.
So how do you help a couple feels who has those emotional blocks and has very difficult time, maybe they feel shame, they're just awkward, they don't know how to word their questions or to how do you help them communicate with each other?
Well, of course, the course of couples therapy, we work on that. Because I find if they're not talking about sex, usually there's a whole lot of other emotional aspects that they're not talking about. So I really work with couples to find out what the blocks are, understanding where the blocks come from, what the function of them are, what the need is, how to help them start to feel safe together so that they can move through the blocks and start to have these conversations. And ultimately, it does end up being a place where they have to take a risk and do something new and different. And so you try to give it in small digestible chunks so that they can kind of stay, you don't want to have them try to do too much too fast
Mm-hmm.
because it's already new and sensitive. So you want to break it down into small pieces that they can start to try and take these risks. Maybe it starts with having a conversation at home with their partner about their attitudes and beliefs towards sex and where that came from and how they feel like that's impacted their sex life together, and have them kind of mutually share and see how that feels, just kind of help them start to feel more safe and comfortable with that dialogue. And then you might progressively lead them into being able to talk about more and more vulnerable aspects of sex till they're able to have these conversations on their own and, you know, create their own workarounds.
Now, I've heard people, I've read articles or whatever in the past and have heard people say that it's best to have conversations like that outside of the bedroom. That when you're first breaching the topics or when you're first talking about things that are particularly uncomfortable, that maybe you have them while you're driving in a car by yourselves or while you're cooking in the kitchen or someplace that's not in the bedroom. Do you agree with that?
Not necessarily. I mean, I could maybe understand. It kind of depends on the couple and the particular situations. If there's a lack of safety and you're having an unsafe conversation, you certainly don't want to reinforce a lack of safety around something so sensitive. But you also, avoidance is not the answer either. It's just helping couples to have these conversations. And sometimes, and most often, I find that couples won't talk about it in the car. There's always an excuse, but
Mm-hmm.
And when they're in the bedroom and something happens that triggers their shame or their inhibitions, oftentimes one or both of them lose steam and, sex will be interrupted and stop. And then there's a lot of emotions around that anyway. So, if you can open up that dialogue when it's happening and talk about it, then you should talk about it. So I say, why not talk about it in the bedroom? That
In the moment
sometimes,
while it's going on.
yeah, sometimes that's the most logical choice to have the conversation, because this is a place where we're trying to create the safety and intimacy, and this is our retreat. So,
Right.
talking about it safely is the way we create safety. So, yeah, I think you should be able to talk about it in your bedroom. Doesn't mean you have to only talk about it in your bedroom.
Right.
You know?
I guess
So,
ideally you could talk about it anywhere you would be together.
yeah, I think it's just understanding, maybe some people feel nervous in the bedroom, like there's a lot of pressure, expectation. So again, you unpack the emotions around that, work through the blocks versus, if they're driving in the car, maybe it feels more casual and less, vulnerable. But again, the point is not to avoid vulnerability, because all aspects of doing something new and intimate and different is vulnerable. And so you've got to be able to find a way to meet each other in that vulnerability. So, yeah.
That makes sense. Um, I've also, we were talking about COVID before. I've heard a lot of, you talk to people, you talk to your friends, and I've heard a lot of people in my age group, and I just turned 53, um, have spent the last 18 months in the house with their spouse. And their sex life has, you'd think you'd have more access to each other because you're in the house so much. But I think because they've all been in the house so much, their sex life has actually decreased. I,
I think it depends on the couple. I think couples that were super connected are probably having more sex, because like I know a lot of couples who were super connected, and it's like, hey, we got nothing else to do. Let's just have a bunch of sex. And it was great. And then other couples who being locked in the house together caused them to face all the things that they've been able to avoid with the busyness of life. And so now that they're dealing with the emotional disconnection, of course, their sex life is suffering because they're dealing with stuff they've not been dealing with before. So I think
yeah,
it could be a both and.
could be. Could be. Um, okay. Changes in sex life, changes in libido, changes in. I'm thinking about this demographic. Um, as people age, their bodies change, their libidos change, their desire change, what feels good changes, and I'm not really sure what my question is after all that. Um,
Maybe we could
I
just validate the fact that your body does change and libidos change, your body responds differently. And I think it's important for people to be able to accept this and not feel shame about it. It's something that a lot of people don't talk about. And it's unfortunate, because then when they get to that place when it's happening, they put a lot of pressure on themselves, like, oh, I should be able to be aroused the same way that I was when I was 20. Yet when you were 20, a stiff wind could make you aroused,
right,
and a lot of it is because you have a lot more testosterone flowing through your body if you're a male than you do when you're in your 50s or your 60s, even your 40s.
mm-hmm.
And same thing for women, especially when they go through menopause or they've had, childbirth, and things that used to be standing upright are now pointing downward. And,
Right,
it can a be hard to believe that you can still be loved when things change, that your partner can still love your body and be aroused by you and your body. And being in denial about the fact that their body is changing and having all that shame, so therefore not the shame is an emotion that compels people to hide. So I see a lot of men that run into low testosterone and have such shame about it that they emotionally hide from it and then won't go see the doctor, won't get it
mm-hmm.
checked, and so they end up not being able to do anything about it, and then not being able to have a fulfilling sex life brings about more shame and just digs them into that cycle. And it's like, okay, you know,
Mm-hmm.
And, women too with the change in hormones. And, it's like if we can talk about this and accept it and not judge yourself for it, then you can learn how to roll with it, what to do with it, how to find a way through it, and still, lots of senior citizens are having tons of sex. They're the fastest
Yes,
rising STD population. So,
I've heard
yeah,
that.
yeah, it doesn't matter what age you are. You're not too old to have sex. So,
No, I had a hysterectomy 2 years ago, and it completely changed in a moment,
mhm.
in a very unexpected way. Like, I don't know why I didn't think about it, but it completely changed everything.
Mhm.
And and I'm 53, postmenopausal.
Mhm.
Everything felt differently from the get-go. I'm really trying to figure out how to be at peace with my aging, changing body, and figure out how I can feel sexy when the parts of my body that used to make me feel sexy don't look or feel the same way. And I know my husband doesn't care. He's still like, okay, let's go, and I don't want the light to be on, and or I
It's
want it to be a colored light, and I want it to be
it's
dim. And
hard to accept yourself and
oh,
see yourself the way your partner sees you. Is
yeah.
clearly he still loves you and is attracted by you and wants to see all of you. That's where those inhibitions come in. And of course, like we all have parts of our bodies we hate, and then you go through medical changes that cause those to move and shift, and then you have hormones that change and impact the mood of everything shifting and changing. And
Right.
it's a lot,
And
know.
I was fighting it for a while, like I would expect it to be the way it was 10 years ago. And then I was disappointed, not necessarily full of shame as much as just resentful and angry. And I just couldn't accept it for a while. It took me a while
Mm-hmm.
to figure out, okay, this isn't going to work that way anymore. Let's find a way where it does work.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, we've got enough communication where we were able to work around and figure out what works. So,
Yeah. And it's like if we can't learn to accept who we are as our body changes, and look, we probably accept our partners for their bodies changing, but yet
right,
to accept
without any
ourselves.
hesitation. Right.
Yeah. But why is it a double standard when it comes to us, right? And do you really want to suffer not having a good feeling of yourself, not having a fulfilling sex life because you're stuck in self judgment? Or would you rather learn to find a way to accept and love yourself, even though things have changed? And yes, it sucks, but I mean, or you could go out and get a bunch of plastic surgery and get yourself nipped and tucked and plumped and stuffed.
No, I
But
don't believe in that either. I mean, I
yeah,
think I believe in everybody's right to choose what works for them and
sure.
make a choice. But
Sexy is an emotional feeling. It's a way that you see yourself. It's not the placement of your body parts. It's not whether or
mhm.
not you can reproduce. It is a
No,
feeling from the inside out. And I get again, it is super hard to feel. I'm somebody who's had liposuction.
hmm,
So, I'm speaking from experience. I know what it's like to hate parts of your body.
yeah,
But ultimately at the end of the day, you've got to be able to look at the mirror and love what's in front of you and find a way to see it as beautiful. And the biggest help can be when you do have a partner who clearly wants you and is still attracted to you. And um and I know I can kind of hear the voice of some people somewhere saying, but what if you don't have that partner?
right. And there are, I mean, I was single for 10 years between the demise of my first marriage and my current marriage now. And there were guys who were like, you are amazing and you're beautiful and you're intelligent, but you're too curvy for me. Bye bye. Or I would love you if only you'd lose weight. And
Mhm.
luckily, I had enough self esteem to be able to just say, go screw yourself, because that's
Yeah.
just, you know, who the hell are you to say that,
Yeah. And
But
then
there are a lot
there's
of guys out there, a lot of women out there too, who are that way.
there's guys on the other end who are like, you're too skinny for me. You need to get
Mm-hmm.
your boobs enhanced, So it's
Right.
like, you know, to feel rejection just sucks. We even know from the neuroscience that the brain encodes rejection as the same physical experience as being stabbed. That's how painful it is.
Wow.
So, whether they say you're too big or you're too small, rejection is rejection and it
True.
sucks. And it's hard not to internalize this as you because it's not you, it's them.
Absolutely.
Them not accepting and projecting their own stuff on you and just it not being a right fit. And there's somebody out there for everyone. So don't try to make yourself to be a square peg in a round hole. Accept you for you, love you for you, and go out and find somebody who does love you for you, because that's the only way you're going to have a safe, loving, and amazing relationship.
Absolutely. I've said similar things. I've had guests say so many similar things over and over again, and I think it can't be said enough or stressed enough. I think people really need to listen carefully and really hear that to internalize it.
Yeah.
I think that too many people put up with things that don't bring meaning and joy to their life. They are on autopilot and just
Where they buy
survive
into
in a
the
relationship.
negative. Yeah, they
Right.
buy into the negative and they discount the positive, because I have a lot of clients that have a partner that is there loving them the whole time and has these wonderful open eyes, open arms, and yet no matter how much love they offer their partner, it's like, nope, I just can't accept it. I can't believe that you actually see me as beautiful or sexy or lovable, because that's not the way I see myself.
Wow.
And it's really painful.
So how do you help someone like that? I mean, obviously it's not a quick fix. It takes,
Yeah. But you got to, again, unpack the blocks, find
yeah.
out what gets in the way. Where did this disbelief come from? Usually there's a reason that people learn not to trust what others say. And again, you help them slowly but surely start to take it in over time. And as they start to take it in, they're able to start being nourished by it. And the transformation is amazing.
Probably all goes back to childhood trauma, things that they learned from their
Mm-hmm.
family of origin, how they were treated in their families,
Yeah, or
you know.
sometimes even like in their early adulthood, they'll have some kind of experience that happens at a pivotal key moment of vulnerability that can redefine their attachment system. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's all it takes.
Yeah, I got a pattern of falling for the same
Mm-hmm.
narcissistic guy,
Mm-hmm.
the same personality in lots of different packages for a
Mm-hmm.
very long time. And I was talking about this with another guest on a previous episode, and it took a long time for me to turn inward enough, to look inward enough, to sort of unpack exactly what I wanted and why I was choosing men like that. And it took a lot of journaling and meditation and really sitting quietly with myself and not hopping from relationship to relationship, which was just distracting and confusing, but to really just sort of date myself for a while and
Mm-hmm.
figure out what I really wanted. And then
Mm-hmm.
I felt more secure about holding those very safe boundaries for myself and stopped seeing
Mm-hmm.
those weird men, those narcissistic men, and made better choices for myself. And it was a bit of a process, but
Yeah.
so worth it.
Oh yeah, and even if they're not narcissistic, it's being able to get to know yourself and being able to define your own value and feel secure in that value, so that whoever comes across, that you're not putting up with unhealthy, hurtful, or toxic behavior because you don't see yourself as worth more, or that someone better will come along and treat you the way you deserve. Kind of that last, this is the last bus along for a while, even though it's broke itself. I'm just going to take it because I don't believe anything else is coming along. So we date someone who's broken down themselves, and then their brokenness then reinforces our own negative self-value, and then we get stuck in this pattern. And yeah, I went through a process like that after my first husband, and then I dated somebody who was really really toxic. And part of that relationship was I didn't know my own value. And
Mhm.
so I really, again, same thing, like allowed this person to disrespect my boundaries. I taught him how to disrespect it
Sure.
because when it felt like he wouldn't love me, I would move the goalpost to get that felt sense of love, which was never really secure love. It was conditional.
Mhm.
And so it was just super unhealthy. And so by doing that, I taught him that I didn't respect my own boundaries. So why did he need to respect them? And it
Well, so
just,
many women do that naturally. I think we're all taught to accept what comes or to smile and keep a happy face and to do whatever we can to please the
well,
person that
you
we're
know what?
with.
I love it from that movie, He's Just Not That Into You, where they
Yeah.
started off and they're saying, we're taught from an early age that the reason that boy is picking on you is because he likes you.
Right.
Stop telling people that. Like, you know what? Maybe he does like you, but that's not the way to behave. So if he's going to pick on you, screw him and have nothing to do with it, right?
Yeah. When I was in 8th grade, I had a boy push me down 2 flights of stairs.
Jeez.
And his best friend said, well, he did that because he has a crush on you. And I'm like, if that's how he treats someone he cares about, what does he
Yeah,
do to an enemy? And the
exactly.
kid was completely flummoxed that I didn't fall over myself to be with him. I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
never even going to talk to you again.
exactly. Exactly. But as we become adults, the ways that they push us down a flight of stairs becomes much more subtle and nuanced. And I see women do this to men too. But,
Mm-hmm.
going back to after I got out of the relationship with the super toxic guy, was I dated myself for a little while because I thought, you know what, if I can't even be with myself, alone with myself and feel secure and happy, why would
Mm-hmm.
anyone else want to be with me?
Precisely.
So I decided to learn to accept, to enjoy myself and my own company and be happy. And it made me so much more secure because then I wasn't desperate and
Mm-hmm.
I was able to say no to the creeps and yes to the good ones. So,
I actually, I can't believe I'm going to actually say this out loud, but I have a good friend of mine who gave me this advice. She was the type who would sort of sleep with a guy on the first date, even
mm-hmm.
though she made herself a promise that she wouldn't.
Yep.
And so she used to masturbate before she'd go out on her dates so that she would be satisfied and not sexually, looking for it, so to speak. And it allowed her to go into dates
Mm-hmm.
with a much clearer head. And I always thought, well, that was pretty damn good advice, I think.
I'm going to guess there's a lot more going on there that's involved that,
Probably, but
yeah,
even
like
superficially.
thing to do with impulse control. Like even when I'm on a date with somebody, I just know them and I'm having fun. Like I get so aroused that I can't control, like I'm driven by my body and my body rules me and I have to on that just because I'm feeling happy and excited. Like, can you feel happy and excited without having to be aroused? Could you go home and masturbate after the date and not have to have sex with somebody? Because, always what happens is they never call you again, or they call
Right.
you all the time thinking they can get sex anytime they want.
Mm-hmm. Either way, it's not what you
Yeah.
doesn't turn out the way you hope it would.
Yes. Yes. And it's still, women still do it the whole all trade sex for love because we're taught that sex is like what men's kryptonite. And so we think if I'm giving them this thing and I make it so good, then they're not going to have any reason to go somewhere else looking for it. Biggest myth that women could swallow, but we
Well,
do.
I think it cheapens it and it makes them think like it's not worth their time. And then if
Yeah.
even if they're the only one you're doing it with, I think it
Mm-hmm.
gives them the impression that you're giving it away for
Yeah.
free, and
And
then they don't want it.
why do they have to put in the emotional cost or investment? Because they're getting all the benefits without having to do any of the work.
Right.
So they have no incentive.
Right.
You gotta honor your own value and not I love when you say cheapen it. You don't have to like discount it or give coupons away in order to get people through the door to love you. Somebody that is worth their salt is going to recognize your value right away and they won't ask for a bargain or a discount or a coupon. They're not
Mm-hmm.
going to ask you to lower your price. They're going to know that you are worth every single penny.
Very good advice.
Mhm.
Very good advice. Now, what do you think of, what is your professional opinion, I suppose, or even your personal opinion? I'm not sure if there's a difference between, I'm not asking this question the right way.
Just ask it the best you can. Give yourself a little grace.
Okay, okay. So I guess this new generation of young adults has very different, maybe liberated, more free um, uh, ways of running their relationships. So I've heard a lot of conversation about polyamory,
Mm-hmm.
about having multiple partners within a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm a little just too ingrained in the most typical monogamy kind of relationship. And to me, I can't, what people do in their own relationships is none of my business. But
Sure.
at the same time, I want to understand what they're doing. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, it sort of seems like they're avoiding commitment,
Yes.
like,
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of ways that you can think about it. And again, like this isn't about judging anybody's choices. What I know is that it's kind of like, relationships are complicated enough. And it's, to me, it's like, if we can't have a relationship together, bringing in a third isn't necessarily going to make it more stable. It's kind of like, oh, our marriage sucks. Let's have a baby.
right,
It's
right. You can't save a
not a baby.
marriage with babies or real estate. I've tried
Right.
that. It doesn't work.
Right. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't be done and that there aren't people out there who do it successfully. I know that it requires a lot of emotional safety to be able to do it well. But in my experience, the couples that have come to me who are considering the idea of polyamory, it is out of a way, it's almost like it is a little avoidant attachment. Like, I don't know how to feel safe really reaching and relying on you in a healthy way where we have healthy interdependency. So if I can't rely on you, then I'm going to reach out to someone else to have my needs met. And the other person who doesn't want to lose them just says, okay, I'll do that because I don't want to lose you. And they go along. I find for a lot of couples, it opens up a can of worms, like lets a genie out of the bottle that then they end up regretting. And then
Yeah.
it's like trying to put the genie back in the bottle creates an enormous amount of pain. So again, it's not, if a couple wants to do it and they come to me and they're saying, how can, help us have this polyamorous relationship in a safe way, then that's what I'm going to work with them to help them do, because, that's their choice and that's the kind of relationship they want. And I'm about helping people create safe and healthy relationships. But I have also, so far to date, yet to meet anybody who's had a successful polyamorous relationship who didn't have an enormous amount of trauma, or who even tried polyamorous relationships that didn't have an enormous amount of trauma. And I've heard of people, I've heard of other people talk about people that they've heard of that have had a successful polyamorous relationship, but that sounds more like a myth than it's nothing I've experienced. And
Yeah,
again,
it
that's not
seems like it
just.
would implode. The minute one person in the couple feels like,
Mhm.
or in the triple, I should say, feels rejected or lonely while the other
Mhm.
one is out gallivanting or doing whatever they're
Right.
doing, then the power inequity or
Mhm.
the safety inequity seems to be very problematic for me.
Right. It can definitely become a competing attachment. And again, it can be very painful, but that's not to say that it can't be done. Um, like I said, it takes an enormous amount of safety and security in order to do it well. And there are definitely, the couples who do this need to have a lot of rules and boundaries that are clearly defined. Sometimes there's still like the main couple relationship within the triad, and then there's kind of rules about how they engage with the third, and it's agreed upon. Um, so Yeah, it's definitely not for everybody. And all I can say is that turning out to a third is, if your intention to turn out to a third is to try to is because you don't feel like you can get your needs met in your current relationship, um, it's not going to help that relationship become safer or more connected. It will cause more damage. And many people who try to go along with it think that they're okay with it and then end up not being okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to be okay with it. It's okay to not be okay with it. It's just, can we do it safely where everyone feels connected and safe and secure? And if not, we have to be willing to look at that and address it. And I've, ironically, couples who have been securely attached, I have never seen them needing to turn outside to get their needs met because they're able to do that safely and securely within the relationship. The only time I've actually seen it kind of happen, which was less of a polyamorous relationship and more of a um, like surrogate, is like, when there is a partner who maybe has some kind of um, maybe like a physical debilitation or terminal illness where maybe they're not able to meet the needs. They know they're never going to be able to meet those needs. And they stay together maybe so that that person with the health issues is taken care of, has a sense of connection, somebody to love and care for them through the illness or maybe their end of life. And maybe to provide like healthcare insurance and kind of stuff. But it's understood that the other person who's doing the caretaking is able to have another relationship to meet those needs that this person can't provide. And it doesn't feel like a competing attachment, and it's able to be done safely. So,
Right. That
there,
seems like a totally different animal to me.
yes, yes. So it really depends on why a couple is doing it, what they're trying to accomplish. If they're trying to do it to make a current relationship better, that is not a way to make a current relationship better. You make a current relationship better by working on the current relationship.
Right.
But like I said, it can be done. But it requires, again, enormous amount of safety, and all partners have to be in agreement and have to be okay with it. So yeah,
Yeah. It's tricky.
yeah,
Tricky, tricky, tricky.
tricky.
Okay, so I have another question for you. So I think with the prevalence or the ubiquity of cell phones and internet in everybody's hands, the porn industry, I think, has skyrocketed.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has access. And I've read a few articles over the past X period of time that says that the ubiquity of pornography is changing expectations in the bedroom, especially with um, younger people.
Excuse and a justification, because we know that porn sex is not real sex. And we know that pornography is extremely damaging. There's all kinds of study and research that when people become like addicted to porn and they're chronically watching it, that it actually shrinks the brain. It
Mm-hmm.
changes their sexual script. It can also change the if only they put this on the box, on
A
the label
warning
for the
label.
porn. Yeah, it's a
Right.
warning label. It actually causes erectile dysfunction
Really?
because the sexual charge becomes with the screen and this, particular kind of sex than anything that's not it. It's kind of, like other forms of addiction. It's like you get used to, you know,
Desensitizes them.
yes, like you have certain amount of shots of tequila and then eventually nothing else will do it for you, and
Right.
and eventually not even that will do it for you. You need to have more, so yes, is it changing the pressure in the bedroom? Absolutely. Is it changing it for the good? No. And there's all kinds of research that backs that up. This isn't just, you know, I mean, if couples decide to watch porn together as a part of their exploration and adventures, and there's a safe connection there, then that's their business,
Right.
but we aren't talking about those couples. We're talking about
No.
people who are frequent porn watchers, and then they expect that that's the way normal
It's
people have sex, like real people have sex, and it's not.
no.
And it's extremely damaging. It's frustrating for both people. The person who thinks they're going to get sex like that and then can't get aroused, and then they feel embarrassed because they can't get aroused, and then the person who feels like they got to live up to porn sex and says that's not the way I want to have sex, and it's not natural for me, and create shame for them. And yeah, that's a very complex issue as well.
Okay. I'm opening a lot of cans of worms here.
Right.
Wow. We covered a lot of little subjects.
Yeah. All right, guys. Hopefully, this doesn't feel like you're kind of drinking from a fire hose right now. Like we just turned on so much information that it's overwhelming. So, hopefully, maybe you just listen to this podcast in little chunks so you can get the benefit of all the information. But hopefully, it's enlightening or interesting or entertaining in the very least bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what is your my brain is so tired. I'm going to edit this little brain fart out.
Maybe people like to hear that you have a brain fart. It makes you human.
I guess. Been up since 5 in the morning. It's a long, long day.
Time for you to hang up your hat and go get in bed and take a sleepy night.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
what is your advice? Like if you could, I need to like rephrase this. You know what I'm saying?
So for couples or people struggling with sex in their relationship, what is
Yeah,
my
I guess that's where we're going.
I think it is to figure out what your own beliefs are around sex, what your own emotional relationship is to sex and your body. Figure out what the blocks and inhibitions are that are holding you back and work through those blocks and inhibitions. Talk to your partner, ask them what theirs are, share your blocks, open up the dialogue. If that feels too scary, go see a therapist, a good therapist, um, and have them help you start to explore that, kind of like a guided exploration into your beliefs and the emotions, and unpack those and start challenging them, and help build that confidence so that you can go home and have those conversations so you can have an amazing and fulfilling sex life. And even if it's you're in a marriage and maybe you used to have really good sex and somehow over the years it's gotten away from you, and you guys haven't talked about and it feels like it's too late, I promise you it is not too late.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with couples who have had a sexless marriage for 15, sometimes 20 years, and
Wow.
they were able to have sex for the first time um, after our work together. So it definitely can be done. So don't count yourself out yet. The key is being able to talk about it and bridge that disconnect and come together again. And it may be a little awkward, and that's okay, but do it anyway.
And it'll get easier as you go.
No asky, no giddy.
Makes sense. If you don't ask, the answer is going to be no.
Yep.
So, how does somebody find a good certified sex therapist?
So ASECT is one of the best resources to find a certified sex therapist. AASECT, it's like the American Association for Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists.
Okay.
But
I'll
they
link
have
that.
like, yeah, they have really hard requirements. And so somebody may still be a really great sex therapist that isn't a sex therapist, that isn't certified through ASECT. But ASECT is a good resource. Otherwise, I would say find somebody who is a really good couples counselor
Mm-hmm.
and kind of interview them about their own beliefs around sex and talk about what it is that you'd possibly like to achieve and if they would be the right person to help um, explore and unpack that. Because some therapists are very uncomfortable talking about sex, which is extremely surprising because we're supposed to do our own work and be able to be professionals. So it really,
And talk about anything your clients need to
yes,
talk about. Right.
yes.
And
So
personality match. Just as you find a regular therapist to help yourself,
yes,
any couples therapist you have to have an energy match,
yes,
personality match, and feel
yes.
comfortable. So it's okay
But
to interview them and
yes, yes. Find someone who's highly trained. Always my go-to model is emotionally focused therapy. It is the gold standard of couples counseling, and that's backed by research. that we've actually tested the interventions of the model and demonstrated them to be more effective than any other model of counseling. We know how they work and we know why they work. So I am a certified EFT supervisor and therapist. You can go to iceeft.com, ICEEFT.com to find a certified therapist in your area. And again, still interview them, and find out if that would be an appropriate fit. But like I said, most sex therapy work is relational work. So somebody who can do really good relational work will be able to help guide you through feeling safe, unpacking any blocks, and having those conversations both within yourself and within your relationship or whoever your sexual partner is. So
excellent.
Yeah.
And with that, I would like to thank you, Dr. Belle. This was really great. I was so excited that we were able to talk. Thank you so much for being here.
And thank you so much for everyone listening. I hope that, like I said, that it was informative, entertaining, hopefully enlightening. And, I hope that you can relate to some of the material. And just thank you so much to those who are listening to this podcast. And, again, just want to reassure you that if things feel kind of hopeless in your relationship, it's not always too late. And don't count yourself out just yet. And but you do have to go out there and work on it in order for it to change. It's not going to move on its own. So, but I just want you to have some encouragement and some reassurance that I've seen couples come back from this stuff all the time, and it can be done for you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you who support this show on Patreon. You keep Permission to Heal up and running. If you want to become a valued patron, please go to www.patreon.com/permission to heal. That's www.patreon.com/permission to heal. After we pay expenses, 25% goes to scholarships at the Karen Treatment Centers to transform lives impacted by addiction. Your support is contributing directly to helping people and their families transform and heal from addiction. This is a cause very close to my heart, as my mother died of the effects of opiate addiction, and it tore my family to pieces. Thank you so much for supporting Permission to Heal and my mission to support others through their healing journey, through addiction, through Karen Treatment Centers. You are vital to our success. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Permission to Heal. I hope you found it moving and inspirational. please remember, you don't need anyone else's permission to trust and follow your heart. You have the power within you. Subscribe to Permission to Heal so you don't miss any new episodes, and please share this with your friends.